Hello and welcome to my channel, Balkan Aesthetics. The title of today's video is The Prodigal Son Returned Because He Was a Son, Not a Stranger. So the vast majority of people are familiar with the parable of the prodigal son. The one who took his father's inheritance and he went ahead and squandered it all, right? After he squandered all of it, he went ahead and lived among the pigs, right? Lived among the dirt, the slop. And one day he said, I've had enough of this. I'm going back to my father. He went back to his father, and his father welcomed him with open arms because his father was just grateful that his son had come back. What many people don't seem to understand is that this parable is talking about a son who left the home. It wasn't talking about some stranger that went up to some guy's house and he said, can you have me? No. It was a son who was a son the entire time, right? He had always belonged to his father. He had just lost his way, right? And many people either willfully or unconsciously ignore this because of the implication of that parable. And the implication of that parable is that there are certain people who are sons and daughters of God from the get-go. And there are certain people who were never sons or daughters of God, and they never will be sons or daughters of God. And this ruffles a lot of feathers. This gets people very upset because it makes it seem like you really have no control of whether or not you will be accepted by God when you want to go into his kingdom, when you stand before him on Judgment Day. You know, this is why a lot of Calvinists, and I'm not saying I'm a Calvinist, but I understand their idea when they talk about something called prevenient grace. And the general gist of prevenient grace is that you were always known by God from the get-go. His hand has always been on you since the day you were born. And you were always destined to go back to him because you always belonged to him in the first place. Now, it's difficult to argue that it's not true, because if you look at the parable of the prodigal son, it's illustrated pretty clearly there that it was a son going back to his father, and he was always a son from the very beginning. He just forgot who he was until he was living among the pigs. So, when it comes to prevenient grace, right, it just goes to show you that there are people out there who will inevitably find themselves going back to God. And when you think about your faith in God in general, you actively seeking God, you searching for God, is a gift from God himself. He put that in you because you have this innate desire to go back home, right? You want to go back to where you came from, which is God the Father, which is the same case as the prodigal son, right? You want to go back home because that's where you belong. And the sad reality that most people don't want to accept is that there are very few people out here who truly belong to God in the first place. Because to truly belong to God would mean that you put him at the forefront of everything. Now, that doesn't mean you're not supposed to have a job or you're not supposed to provide for yourself. What it means is when you have spare time, right? When you have time to kill, as they say, you'll want to spend the majority of that time searching out the things of God, right? You will be obsessed with God over everything else because this world has lost its meaning to you because you found out where real meaning comes from. And that's because you always came from that same source. So yeah, that's all I got for this video. If you'd like to give it a like, that'd be wonderful. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. If you want to leave a comment for any other future video you'd like me to do, I'd be happy to take that request. And as always, glory to God. See you in the next video. Bye.